All right. So I'm getting this video stuff down, and welcome. So hopefully you've looked at the introduction, you've looked at the welcome to the course, about navigating the course video. This video is going to be strictly about navigating and what's going on in modules 1 and 2, which are your assignments for the first week. So I'm on this page, so we're looking at the introduction, so you should look at this section first. We talked about the syllabus, we talked about the assignment schedule, so you should have all that down there. What I really want to get in today is the modules 1 and 2. Not grueling, not terrible, but I just want to kind of go through these so we can get our feet wet. This week is not too bad. Next week is not too bad, but there's more reading involved. So you will want to, that will open up to you on the 9th. So that's Friday. You will want to, once that opens up, to go ahead and start doing the reading. I think I'm doubling up on a couple of the assignments with one of the reading pieces, the things they carried. So I snuck that out. So if you want to get that read as well. Before I get going, I want to make sure that I'm reiterating this should all be your work. It should be not computer generated. When you look at the posting instructions, you're going to see where it asks you to not look up the answers. It's wanting you to put your feedback in there. And then when you're replying to the other posts, please do so in a respectful, thoughtful, and kind manner. There should be nothing negative posted on these. Should go without saying. However, I just said it. There we go. Next, for this week especially, I plan on checking my email and my messages every evening. So if you're struggling, or if I've screwed something up, if you're like, I don't see this, or I don't hear this, and there's an issue, send me a message. Like, I'm a fallible person. Like, I'm a human being, so I may make mistakes. If that occurs, send me a message in the Canvas, in the inbox, and I will be happy to address that. And again, I will check that Monday evening. I will check that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday evenings as well, and next weekend. Speaking of which, next weekend, my plan is to have another video such as this, taking on some of the posts that I've seen, giving some feedback in general on that after I've done specific feedback on your stuff, and to kind of set you up for next week's reading. So that being said, all the introductory mumbo jumbos out of the way now, let's go into what we're doing this week. So in Module 1 and Module 2, which are opening up to you, they should be open to you now. When you come into the module itself, you click on the learning Module 1, Learning Elements Presentation, blah, blah, blah. It will, there we go. So it's going to open up on this, and you're going to have a lot of information talking about reading literature and whatnot. What is literature? Several pages to this. Once you're done here, I'm not going to go to the next because my picture and my video is down there. However, has the readings, and this week on Module 1, they're literally 10, 15-minute reads. So they aren't brutal. And then once you do the readings, there's this video to watch. Writing Center stuff here, yeah, that's fine. But when we get to the discussion, let's look at, it's locked for us now. The discussion, you're going to see the first one is, I'm in the student view, so it's locked for us right now. The discussion is going to be, the first one is just like, what do you want to be called in the class? What is your background type of thing? The second one is a question about the readings. If you'll notice here, the first one is due on the 7th, the second one is due on the 9th, and we go down to Module 2. This one is due on the 9th. So I have 2 modules that are due on the 9th. That needs to happen. So that reading, discussion, and post needs to happen before Friday. Yes. And that way I can get you feedback over the weekend and then put one of these videos together for you guys for next week for you to engage in the next set of assignments and readings. So one of the components of ENC 1102 here at Eastern Florida is the fact that this is a literature-based class. And a little bit of the reading and discussion you're going to be doing this week, I just want to kind of front load this a little bit, has to do with why we, in fact, actually read literature, like why are we reading this stuff. And there's in chapter 1 they have, it's like 3 or 4 pages, so it's not very long, and it kind of has this general discussion on why we read literature. And for me, in teaching literature, I find that there's a inherent connection between art and life, and between life and art. The discussion can be made, which one, the chicken or the egg. Does life reflect art, or does art reflect life? And I think it's both. I think that art can reflect life, but I think that also life can reflect art. Well, how does that work? A writer, a painter, a sculptor, a musician, an artist, somebody creates something from the life that they live. They've experienced something, they've seen something, they've watched something, an occurrence, a breakup, a falling in love, a tragic event, a wonderful event. Something's occurred to that person or for that person in that person's life, and they create something from it. That is life creating art. That's, as love or hate the artist Taylor Swift. I'm no guru or person who, I can't say that I'm an expert on Taylor Swift's work. But what I do know is I do enjoy watching the Tiny Desk concerts. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those. But the Tiny Desk concert, she does this, and it's an NPR thing, and an artist comes in. It's typically acoustic, but not always. And there's a tiny desk there, and there's an audience of employees from NPR, and they play for this. And it's really a cool little thing. If you YouTube it, you'll see. But she does this, and she's talking about how things in her life have created the music that she has done. That's life creating art. But then how does art create life? Well, one need only have taught or lived during the 90s to see how artists such as Tupac and Biggie, and just their fashion and the way that they spoke and the way that they came on like gangbusters into the American culture, created life for a lot of people. They saw it. One need only read Harry Potter or talk about Harry Potter to children of the 90s and the 2000s and see how much that influenced who they were. The way they dressed, the way they spoke, the way they thought, the way they saw the world. And these just 2 examples of art reflecting life and life reflecting art. And here, life reflecting art are like indicative of why I feel that art is, and here literature as art is important for us to look at and to understand. There's a guy, his name is David Brooks. He's a columnist for the New York Times, and he just recently, last week, had an article about art and about how we process art, how we engage in art. And one of the things he suggests is that art allows us, so literature, so when you read this week, when you're reading Cathedral, or you're reading A Good Man Is Hard to Find, or you're reading what's the other? A Rose for Emily. And you're going to read 2 of those 3. As you're reading these pieces, well, one of them is set, after the Civil War. One of them is not far from the Civil War. One of them is set in 1960s South, and one of them is set in 1970s, late 70s, early 80s Northeast. They're all works of fiction, although Raymond Carver's Cathedral is probably more reflective of reality, realistic fiction, than the other 2, although Flannery O'Connor, and we'll talk a little bit about her in just a minute. as you're reading them, think about how these writers from different eras have engaged in lifelike themes, lifelike occurrences, lifelike situations. And hopefully, at least for two of them, I hope you never have to go through any of that, especially A Good Man is Hard to Find, which I won't spoil it for you. You read it. Okay, so I'm hoping that the art that we read, I can show a direct correlation between the reality in which we live, but also show you how our reading of it, our analyzing of it, our discussion of it, our thoughts of it can provide us the ability to see the world through other people's eyes, but also to provide us with tools for analysis and understanding and creating and developing our arguments that can transfer to other disciplines, to include the sciences, the social sciences, psychology, history, engineering, mathematics, medicine, medical. All of those, I think I can make these connections. All right, so to stop rambling, your readings this week, other than Module 1, the Module 2 readings, are going to include, I just mentioned the works, you're going to read 2 of the 3 choices, either Cathedral by Raymond Carver, A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor, and Rose for Emily by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, I screwed that up. No, I'm right. I want to make sure. I got to check myself here. The teacher. I've been reading so much. Yeah, it's not. It's I got Steinbeck on my brain. It's not. It is William Faulkner. Okay. Duh. So I had Steinbeck on my brain. They're contemporaries. Hemingway, Steinbeck, Faulkner. These guys are hanging out at the same times. So, A Rose for Emily by Faulkner. Faulkner is this macabre, southern, this gothic type writer, early 20th century. He writes very Poe-esque, like similar to Poe in a sense. So you'll see some similarities if you've ever read any Edgar Allan Poe from the 19th century. The story is pretty quick, pretty straightforward, and very enjoyable. The second one, the other option, is going to be, or the next one further up the line, is by Flannery O'Connor. And full disclosure, Flannery O'Connor is easily one of my favorite writers of all time. She is so out there. I mean, here's this woman, you're going to read this. She is a staunch Catholic and living in the South, which is incredibly Protestant. She is growing up. She lives with lupus. It's this painful disease that she carries with her. But she's this brilliant writer. And you're going to see the components of religion, and you're going to see components of faith, and you're going to see components of family and the South, and it's raw. It is raw and bizarre, and you feel for all of the characters in this. Not that I'm swaying you, but I highly recommend that is one of the stories you read. The third is Cathedral by Raymond Carver. Raymond Carver is this contemporary in that. I think this story is published in 1981, and he's realistic fiction, Hemingway-esque, if in a sense, if you will. But his story is really fascinating. I find it fascinating in the human interactions, but it's very simple. There's only 3 characters in the entire thing, and really, I would say they're not equally of the narrator, his wife, and a visitor. So another good story. So enjoy those, or whichever you choose. But I do want to talk a little bit about a term called presentism. Now, presentism and this discipline in ENC 1102, for my purposes, I'll say, I can't speak for everyone, but presentism is this notion that we read something in the present and we apply present day attributes or morals or values or thoughts onto something that happened a while ago. So, for example, Faulkner or O'Connor or even Carver back in the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in the 60s, and I was raised in hell in the 80s for sure. And so I can feel for this particular story as like the setting of it. But presentism it's oftentimes almost like an analytical fallacy in that we get angry or we get bothered or we start applying. For example, and I'm just going to give a small example, in the cathedral story, they're talking about a TV and they're talking about televisions and they're talking about, oh, well, we upgraded from a black and white to a color TV. He talks about the station going out. And so back in the 80s and 70s and 80s, at some time at night, if they were watching network television, it just stopped broadcasting. You got this picture on the screen and there was no more television that night. You were done watching TV. You could not just keep watching. There wasn't this 24/7, a million channels, streaming, all of that we have today. So to understand that. But I really want to touch on all three of these stories take on people who are marginalized, or people who are the others, people of color, people who might be disabled, people who are not in the majority. And they do it in a way that is raw. It's raw for sure. And with Faulkner and with I'm thinking Georgia O'Keeffe, with O'Connor, Flannery O'Connor, and William Faulkner, they use language that I personally do not use, but it's indicative of where they're from and what they're writing about. So as you're reading, you might find some of that to be, like I said, the word I'm going to use is raw. So please think about when and where and who is writing this at that time, and how that might even be seen differently today and taken in today differently. Anyhow, so that's modules 1 and 2. You have 2 quick readings in the module 1. You have a couple of longer readings, but literally they're probably 30-minute readings each, if that. If you're annotating and taking some notes and then you're engaging in the work, it shouldn't be that bad. If you are struggling with it or you have questions, again, I will be checking my messages on a nightly basis. So wait for the evening and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So I'm hoping that you get all this, and if not, let me know. I'm looking forward to it, and I will give you guys some feedback on your posts, and I'm looking forward to reading what you have to say about what we're reading. Thanks, and enjoy the week.